So far today, I'll be discussing more with the presentations rather than just speaking around the PPTs. We will be using some analytical tool along with the PPTs so as to explain you better about the effect of US tariff policy. We will trying to understand the evolution of US tariff policy since last 10-15 years, even including the present context also specifically, because this time it is very high and it is a hot issue which is going on like anything. And but we have to go through a trajectory that how it evolved and what have been the effects, and we will be doing a comparative effect using Power BI. I have imported the data. I've just tried to make some cards in Power BI, and so as to explain you better that how specifically the US tariff policy is being changing, how it has been affecting the particular sector, and then specifically we will be focusing on India also, how the specific sector of India would be affected. So all in all, today we are doing more of a data analysis. You don't have to do any data analysis. I'll just share what all data analytical practices or process I have done for you so that you can understand, and we will be only going through the interpretation of that. Data analysis part has been done. So this has been done by me, but what we will need to understand the interpretation of that. So I hope all of you will be following with me, and in case you miss somewhere sometime, you can just stop me and ask me to repeat, and I'll try this session to be more engaging. I will show you the Power BI analysis also, and wherever whatever you want to seek, we can just go through that particular aspect, because Power BI gives us the, I'm not promoting Power BI, but Power BI gives the option for us to uh, get a specific sector wise, specific card wise, specific item wise, specific element wise interpretation of a particular thing which we want to study. So we will be doing like that. So I hope now my screen is visible to all of you, and you can see all of my both of my screens. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Sure, thank you. So first of all, before starting the presentation, all those who are in this FTP session, may I know how many of you have been from the background of international economics, or from the background of economics, or from the background of data analysis, or from the background of trade, finance, businesses? So may I know anyone of you being from that background or from the background of business?
No, myself is Professor Dattu Kajle. I'm
Yes, sir.
a professor in political science.
Okay, sir.
Mumbai, Kandivli.
Sure, sure, sir, sure. Thank you,
Uh,
sir. Thank you, sir.
so
Anyone
whenever
else?
possible,
Yes,
please explain the concept.
political
So for
aspect of
us,
it.
ha,
Absolutely,
okay,
absolutely,
okay.
absolutely. Anyone
Sir,
else
I'm
want to?
also a postgraduate in economics.
Oh wow, Bap.
I'm a lecturer. I'm a lecturer
Okay,
teaching economics to the students.
okay, okay. So great of you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who want to give their background to me? If you are a layman, that would be the best thing because it is very easy to grasp when we have not any don't have any idea for anything. So those who are not from economics, it's I think it will be better for them. Those who are not from this field also, it will be better for them to learn, because I have seen those who are from the field, they get confused, but those who are not from the field, they get it very easily. So as that Kajle sir, Professor Kajle sir told me, sir, I am from political science. Please explain me, sir. It will be very grateful to explain you also, because many of the things, if we know it, then we get confused. But if we don't know, then we don't get confused. So far, eh?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. So far so good. I don't think anyone else want to give any kind of comment or just want to give about the background. No issues with that. But I'll just start now. So I think now my screen will be visible to all of you. So we'll start. So so how the US tariff policy has evolved from last 10, 15, 25 years, and what have been the critique of that, what has been the impact of that, and what could be the possible coming impacts of that. in coming 10-15 years, how it will be going to affect the various developed, underdeveloped, and emerging economies. So the most important part of the US tariff policy is this: it is not a new one, though it is now being on a higher intensity because of many geopolitical realignments. But actually, US tariff policy have been fluctuating. It's been going through many phases, but one thing remains the common, that is nation first. So US tariff policy has been showing a dramatic shifts since 1621, then 2024 and 21. So we are taking three base eras. We will try to also include the period before 2016, that is the period of Obama administration. So have divided into four parts specifically: pre-Trump period, that is the Obama administration. Number two, the first Trump administration, then the Biden's approach, and then again the Trump's approach in this present year. So we have divided into four parts. First of all, the administration at the time of Obama, then the administration during the first Trump period, then the administration during the Biden's period, and now again the Trump's period. So four tariff regime we're gonna study and how it has been different from each other. What has been the approach, what had been the target, and how the alignments have changed. So just for now, if we talk about the current statistics in 2025, so average US tariff is about 27%, which is highest in over a century. It is the highest tariff which US would have applied from this century. So it's a very important statistic which need to be understood, that this is the highest tariff rate which could have been till now. So what is US is imposing? It's an average US tariff. What is average US tariff? Tariff means what a country imposes as a form of tax on the imports they are getting. Let's say US is importing some goods from India, let's say for $10. The value is $10 in US. So US, in order to reduce its consumption in its own country, and to earn some revenue over it for the government, will try to impose a tax. I will try to explain it as simple as I can. So what US will do? US will impose, let's say, $5 tax on that. So that good will be available to a common US citizen at $15. So this $5 becomes a tax as a tariff. So for that person, the value of this good will be $15 rather than $10. What the loss it makes to the other country, that it reduces the competitiveness of that product, because for the consumer the price is rising and government is earning a profit. Government is earning a tax over revenue over it. So in order to discourage the imports, usually countries try to put tariffs on the goods being imported from other countries. Or in order to retaliate, they try to impose. Like recently, US has imposed 50% rate of tariff on India. So what happens? The value of our goods will rise by 50% for a US consumer. That means they will buy less. And if they will buy less, the person who is selling from India will get less revenue. Will get less revenue, then what will happen? It will be a loss for Indian economy, because we will be having less exports, less amount of demand from the other country. So this is the basic meaning of tariff. So I hope all got the meaning of tariff and you're comfortable with the meaning of tariff. I have tried to explain to you. Please speak up if in case you are not been comfortable. And if yes, then please tell me. So Kajli sir, you got the meaning of tariff clearly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Sure. Thank you. I'll keep on disturbing you, sir,
Sure,
in
sir,
between.
sure.
Okay. So the average US tariff rate is 27%. That is the highest in over a century. And I think, Shelja ji, you are quite comfortable because you're from the economics. So probably I hope you are very much comfortable with this. So
Yes, sir.
sure, ma'am. So average US tariff rate is 27%, which is the highest tariff rate in the 100 years. Not in a decade, it's in 100 years. Never ever US had put such a tariff rate. What is average US tariff? That on an average, containing all the countries from which US imports its products or imposes the tariff. So this is the average rate of tariff on every good being imported by US, and which is highest in 100 years. So this is a very alarming situation for the world specifically, if I talk about. Next is the case of federal revenue. So the federal revenue from tariffs were 5% versus 2% historically. Till now, the amount of revenue from tariff for the US GDP or the US sources of revenue from taxes was used to be 2%. Now it is 5%, which is also historically very high. And the total trade affected yearly is $1 trillion. That is $1+ trillion annually. And this is also a huge amount. So far, so good. We now move ahead to how this is actually affecting the economies, how this had been different in different periods. So we have three different periods, four different administrations. So I will try to explain what been different in four different administrations through Power BI and analysis on Power BI, and three different historical contexts from free trade to protectionism. So there are a period of uh, free trade, that is 1790 to 1930. It was the revenue generation was the focus. So your US tariff policy was to generate revenue, not to discourage the import, but to generate the revenue out of the taxes. 1932 to 2016 was the period of trade liberalization, when, as I already mentioned yesterday, in this period, US tried to liberalize its economy. They have tried to promote free trade. They have put less restrictions on the imports from the other countries because they want to actually globalize their economy. And they have also been benefited with that also. But 2016 till present, now they're heading towards the protectionism. So from 2016, there is a turnover. There's a turning point. So from 2016, they also US start imposing the protectionism on many worlds. So from 2016, it took a turnaround. So 2016 becomes the turning point for US economy start following the policy of protectionism. Till now, before 2016, they were going on a liberalization. Their economy was open. Pre 2016, if we compare, so 2016 becomes a point of structural break from where the situations have changed. Till 2016, the average tariff rate was about 1.5 to 3%. So you can just compare now. The average rate of tariff in US was 1.5 to 3%. And what rate now we have seen? 27%. So you can see how much times there is a rise. It was 1.5 to 3% at max before 2016. And now it is 27%. So it is 9 times more than what it is. So what tariff rate US is imposing right now is 9 times. That is 9 multiplied by 9. 3 nines are 27. So it is 9 times more what it used to impose before 2016 since 1719, or at least since 1930. As I have mentioned, 100 years. Since 1930 to 2016, the average rate of tariff was 3%, 1.5%. And now it is 27%. So you can just imagine how much tariff has increased within these 10 years, which has not been done in last 100 years. And it is a very alarming situation. It will lead to some collapse. It has been expected by many of the economists also. It would someday would lead to some collapse. Someone has commented that, sir, please start the slide show that the font much better visible. I just increase the font. That's not an issue, ma'am. I hope it's okay now. Thank you. So These are the three different periods. So we can just imagine how the post 2016 there has been a lot of change through which the US economy is moving towards, and it's in tariff policy. So post 2016 they gave three arguments, that is national security, unfair trade practices, and reciprocal trade tariff framework. So what US justifies post 2016 tariff policy, before 2016 they were on trade liberalization, they were not posing so much of tariffs, but post 2016 they gave three justifications or three arguments in order to favor their move of imposing higher tariffs. So what justification they gave? First of all, the security, that they are now skeptical about the national security being affected by the high movement of goods and services from other countries. Second, they are highly affected by the unfair trade practices, that is the dumping, selling the goods less than the price it is being sold in your own country, for which the mostly the culprit being the China. Dumping means, let's say you are selling a product of $10 in your own country and trying to selling that same product in another country less than what you are being selling at your own country in order to sell more there. So what happens? Let you sell $5 in your country, sorry, $10 price in your country, and selling the same product in another country at $5. So at just half price, in order to have more demand for your product. So this comes under the unfair trade practices. Third comes the reciprocal tariff. That is, some countries are imposing higher tariffs on US. So in that sense, US also retaliate. It has to retaliate because other countries not giving them free market. So in order to retaliate, they have to reciprocate the tariff framework. So now we go ahead how the administration from Trump, from Biden, then again Trump, and before that earlier the Obama administration, how it was. So now we move ahead to the Power BI analysis. Now, I think my Power BI window is visible to everyone. If not, then please let me know. I hope my Power BI window is visible. Thank you, ma'am. So let's understand how the terms, how the things have been changing. So first of all, we start with the Obama period, that is 2015-16. And this was a phase of pre-trade war. Now, what is pre-trade war? Before this, the US was following a trade liberalized policy. They were not imposing any kind of tariff on any kind of country. They were on a trade liberalization mode. They were allowing goods and services. They were following WTO trade regulations. They haven't been on a protectionism. So this was the pre-trade war. That is the 2015-16 period. That was the period of Obama. So in the Obama administration, if you talk about 2015, let's say I select 2015. So on this, we have the data for year, administration, and the policy phase. On the upper left, we have sum of average tariff by the particular administration. On the right, in the upper right, we are having the sum of federal revenue percent by administration. And in the last, we are having sum of trade affected by the administration. So specifically, we are talking about three administration: Trump, Biden, Obama. Though the years were different because everyone except Biden repeated twice, but there were different phases for that particular administration. So three administrator: Trump administration, Biden administration, and Obama administration. So let's start with the Obama administration. So in the Obama administration, that is pre-trade war, I select that and only that will be reflected in all the cards. So what is the first card? First card on the left corner, we have the administration, year, and policy phase. Above that, we are having this average tariff by a particular administrator. Then we have federal revenue by a particular administrator. And at last, we have some of the trade affected by this particular administration. So we start with Obama. So I select here Obama. Now it will only show what Obama administration used to have. This is 2015 pre-trade war Obama administration. So sum of average tariff So if I see the sum of average tariff, this is the sum of average tariff. That is about 2.8%, 2.9%. So this was the sum of average tariff, as you can see. So 2.8%, 2.9%. Is that clear to everyone? This was 2015. 2.8, that is almost 2.9. I hope everyone got it. Sure. So this was Obama administration, 2.8%. Next, the sum of federal revenue. This was the sum of federal revenue. That is about 1.3% out of 4.13%. I again repeat, it is a 1.3% out of 4.13%. I hope it is clear. Next, we come to the sum of trade affected. So this must sum of trade been affected. So it is the least trade affected during the Obama period because it was a trade liberalization period. So if we talk about the Obama period, we can see in all the graphs, average tariff was the lowest, federal revenue percent was also being lowest, and the trade being affected was also being the lowest amount. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Now we come to the period of Biden. So in the Biden's period, if you go by this sum of average tariff, so this was the Biden's period on the left part. So it was 36.2%. That is, this was the average tariff during the administration of Biden. Now, this is not the average tariff imposed on all over the world. This is some of the tariff being involved in whole period from 21 policy phase 1, policy phase 2, policy phase 3, and policy phase 4. So what we can select the latest, that is Biden in 2024. This will come up with the perfect data. So in the Biden's period 2014, so this was the 12.5%. Now it comes to the correct amount. So in the Biden's period, it was 12.5% in 2024. We will take the latest one. So in 2024, it was 12.5% during the Biden's period. This period was pre-election. So in pre-election, it was 12.5%. And when Biden just joined, how much it was? It was 7.6%. So this also gives a picture. What picture does it give? Please listen to it carefully. It is a political analysis also. If I think one of our member is from political science, so he asked me to explain that part also. Professor Kajle.
Yes.
So the Biden joined the office in 2021. At that point of time, the average tariff was 7.6%. As you can see, 7.6%. This is the highlighted one. So this was the tariff percentage when Biden joined. That is 7.6%. And when Biden went for election, this tariff rose to 12.5% from 7.6. So the tariff rate increased when Biden moved from joining the office till pre-election. So what this pre-election signifies? This pre-election signifies a political move. in order to please and appease the people that yes, we are having and protecting our economy more from the world economy, to please the businesses, to please the domestic industries, and to appease the whole population. That too again to make America great again. That quote has been long since 2005, to make America great again. Why? To reduce their dependence on imports from China. So it was a nationalistic image. It was a nationalistic move also at that moment. So therefore, when Biden joined, it was 7.6, and then it went to 12.5 pre-election. What was the revenue at that moment? If you can see, so it was 4.2%. It was 4.2% revenue, not so high as compared to the Trump's one. And if we talk about the trade affection, so the trade being affected over there, so it was about 16.27% amount of trade being affected due to this tariff. Now we come back to the Trump's era. First of all, we see the Trump initially, or the first term of Trump, that is the year 2017. That is called the policy phase of early Trump, when Trump just joined the office. So in 2017, in November 2016, they were having the election, and in 2017, that was the first term of Trump, initial term of Trump. So at that moment, how much the tariff and how much the average tariff, how much the federal revenue, and how much the trade been affected by this administration, we can see. So we can see over here. This was the Trump 2017 policy phase, was early term period. So how much tariff was there? So it was 3.1%. Now you can see it was so least. It was so least at that moment. It was around 3.1%. Now, how it rose? Please read it carefully. First of all, read it carefully. It was 3.7% in 2017. So Trump joined the office. Initially, it was 3.1% average tariff by Trump. In 2018, when trade war started, from 3.1 it went to 7.4. As you can see, it was 3.1, now it became 7.4, highlighted by the orange part. In 2019, when trade war peaked, it went to 7.8%. So from 17, 18, 19. So from 17 to 18, it rose by double, from 3.1 to 7.4. In 2019, it went to 7.8. And then in 2020, the phase of COVID, it went to 7.5. So it's starting from 7.4, then 7.8, and in COVID, it was 7.5. And at last, right now, 25, when Trump imposed universal tariff for all of the nations in the world, it went to 27%, which is the historic. So I think you can just estimate 2017, 18, 19, 20. It was around 7%, 7%, 7%. Just rose by double, but now it is 27%. So from 7% to 8% to directly to 27, that means 3 times. So this time it is the highest one. Now, what the trade being affected, we have to see. So with this 27% tariff, how much the revenue has increased, we can see. So this much amount of revenue, that is 15.87%, or it is the 5% of the total revenue of the government. So 5% revenue of the government comes from tariff in present time for US in 2025. And how much trade been affected? That is the highest. So you can see almost 27% of trade being affected out of 53%. So out of that is about 1100, $1,000 billion. This much amount of trade being affected. That is 1 trillion in dollars. That is the highest amount of trade been affected in the Trump era. So I hope you are getting what I mean to convey. Now, if we deselect all, what we can compare? So first of all, if we compare individually, so this was the average tariff in the Trump. It was sum of average tariff during the Trump era, which is 55%, joining it from 2017, 18, 19, 20, and now the 25. This was the Biden era, and this was the Obama era. So highest tariff been imposed by the Trump till now. This much is about the status of the revenue of the government. So during the Trump's era, almost 15% revenue came from the tariff. Biden's it was 13%, and Obama it was 2.5%. The trade affected, if you can see, so now it is an interesting thing. During the Trump era, the trade affected was about 53%, and during the Biden's era, it was also about 45%. So there is no big difference between the Trump era and the Biden era. This need to be taken care of. In the Biden's era, it was also 2 trillion. In the Trump's era, it was also 2 trillion. But now it is highest for a single year, that is 1 trillion. That need to be taken care of. This is for the whole Biden period from 21 to 24. So this need to be out of this 53%, most of them been accounted to the 2025, where the Trump has imposed the highest tariff in a century. So this is the condition. This is how the US tariff policy has evolved in these three administrations, from Biden, from Obama to Trump, then to Biden, and then again to Trump. I think you are getting what I mean to convey, and you have tried to understand what all I want to discuss as of now. Can we move ahead now? Hopefully. So now we go to another aspect. What had been the Trump administration from 2017 to 21? I just increase the font size so that everyone can see. So this was the first wave of tariff, which came up as a protectionist policy in the Trump administration. So first of all, as I have mentioned, the national security as a justification in the Trump administration from 2017 to 21. So Trump imposed, as per Section 232 of tariffs under the national security justification, by imposing 25% tariff on steel, 10% on aluminum, and the rationale was the product to protect the domestic industries, to protect the nation and the nation's domestic industries from the cutthroat competition. Next was Section 301 tariff, that is unfair trade practices, which targeted $370 billion of goods from China, and the tariff rates rose from 7.5% to 25%, just by double, not by double, but by more than 3 times. And the theft and the issue was mentioned in this unfair trade practices was the technological transfer and the IP theft focus. Lastly was the trade war escalation, which has seen a retaliation of about $185 billion US goods, where the agriculture sector being heavily affected. So this was the Trump administration, the first wave of tariffs. Next, the Biden administration. So this was the amount of tariff being involved in the Biden administration. And these were the consequences. These were the consequential reasons for that. So far as concerned, the tariff rates were new tariff rates were imposed in May 2024. As I have mentioned, the pre-election period. So 100% tariff on China EVs, Chinese electronic vehicles, solar cells, semiconductors. So this was the period when the Biden administration targeted the Chinese products and many other products from the developing or the emerging economies. As I have mentioned, this was the pre-election period. That's why it became so huge. Next, the Trump's second term. That is the present context if we talk about. So in the present context, that is the second term of Trump, we could see a 10% baseline tariff on all imports from every country, some country specific reciprocal tariff from 15% to 50%. And now you can see in the case of India, it is about the highest tariff on India, that is 50%. Two countries are facing the highest tariff from the emerging ones, that is India and Brazil, for about 50%. Steel and aluminum, up to 50% tax, and many other reasons for it. See, these are the national security reasons being given as a justification for the tariffs from steel, aluminum, automobile tariffs, copper tariffs. These were the reasons for that, and these were the consequences of it. So, as per National Security Tariff Section 232, so to expand its domestic production, so tariff rate increased from 25 to 50%. It included 407 additional products, that is under the ambit of this tariff rate. Then household appliances were also included in June 25. Now the automobile tariffs from March 25, 25% tariff being imposed on the imported cars. USMCA, these were the countries over the part of this union. It includes Mexico and Canada. It is called United States Mexico and Canada Association. So exemptions were initially there, but then it was eliminated. So even on the Mexico and Canada, who are in close proximity and the close ally of US, United States of America also imposed tariff on them, and they have released all the exemptions and eliminated them. So right now, the US is moving ahead towards a sheer policy of protectionism, trade retaliation, and tariff retaliation. And lastly, the unfair trade practices. As I mentioned, the three reasons and three framework on which the tariff been imposed. Number one was national security. Number two was unfair trade practices. And number three is national security tariffs was number one, and number two was the unfair trade practices. So under the unfair trade practices framework, some China specific measures, as I've already mentioned with you, these are the sectors which got mostly affected: semiconductors, EVs, solar cells, batteries, medical equipments. Now, what has been the economic impact of this? It has reduced the Chinese import share from 21% to 13.9%. It is a huge impact on Chinese economy. It is showing the share of Chinese products in the imports of US. So it has reduced its share from 21% to 13%. Now this trade being diverted towards Vietnam, Mexico, and many elite countries. But now we have to consider India out of this trade diversion. Why? What is trade diversion? That US was importing most of its products from China. Now the trade has reduced from 21% to 13% of its whole import. Now this excess of 9% will be imported from Vietnam, Mexico, and India, but not India right now, because India has also been imposed with 50% rate of tariff. So Vietnam and Mexico have the advantage to tap the opportunity in order to export its products towards US, because US has imposed a lot of tariff on China, as I've already mentioned, in these particular sectors. So it gives a better opportunity for the countries like Vietnam and Mexico to play this opportunity and provide the supply. And it will be a welfare loss about 0.12% of GDP for US, not for other countries, but for US, because it will lead to a higher cost or a higher rate of inflation in the US domestic economy. Because of higher tariffs, US citizens would tend to buy products from at a higher prices, which also depends upon the elasticity of demand. But yes, there are some products which are being demanded so high, and in case the tariff is so high, it will lead to a higher rate of inflation in US economy, and this will actually be affecting the supply chain also, because a lot of US manufacturing industries are using semiconductors, they are using solar cells, they are using batteries, which was being earlier imported from China. So this will actually affect the supply in US and actually being causing a lot of damage to the GDP of US. But at least 0.12% of GDP. This is the estimated welfare loss of society. So now I think my slide is quite visible. Earlier it was not visible clearly. So these were the framework under section 301 unfair trade practices. So I think Sheljaji, now my screen is quite visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So these are the Chinese specific measures as I've already explained to you. If you want to ask anything from this slide, I can explain, then we will continue. These are few economic impacts that Chinese import share has been reducing from 21% to 13%. This trade being now diverted towards Vietnam, Mexico, but not India right now, because India has been already facing a 50% rate of tariff. The estimated welfare loss for US will be 0.12% of GDP. This welfare loss is the welfare loss for the consumer, because now consumer has to buy this product at a higher rate because a higher rate of tariff, or US has to source its imports from other countries, and that will take some lag, and that lag will lead to the supply chain disruption, and that will actually cause the high rate of inflation in US economy, and which is actually been the concern of their domestic industries also, that how to get supplies of such products which are being used in their manufacturing industries. So this will be a big concern for US now. Now we come to the another aspect, the impact of tariff on India and this 50% tariff shock. So I'll just try to explain it more clearly with highlighted version, and then we will go to Power BI again and try to understand it more. So if we talk about the case of India, so the 50% tariff shock on India, which is very shocking, which is very detrimental for the economies also. So this was a 25% reciprocal tariff imposed on 7th August 2025. So we just go to the timeline. So when 25% rate of tariff was imposed, it was being imposed as a precondition that India should stop importing Russian oil as a part of a geopolitical move. But India didn't went for that. And on August 27th, an additional 25% penalty was also imposed, and this led to a 50% tariff on Indian imports. And the justification was same, that Russian oil purchases, which will be about $48.2 billion for Russia. So this much amount we are paying to Russia. And this is being a cause of, as stated by US administration, this has been the reason by which US has imposed 50% rate of penalty as a penalty tariff on India. So if we go by the sector analysis, we will do the sector analysis by Power BI also, but right now we are just going through the initial part. Then we will go into the detail how this particular sector being affected. We will be continuing this thing tomorrow also, because it's a large and a huge content to discuss. So today I'll be just taking the brief, and as I have mentioned one aspect in the Power BI, the evolution of tariff. Tomorrow we will try to explain more with Power BI, that is about the impact on India, sector-wise analysis, and all those things. Because I have done the sector-wise analysis also, how much a particular sector being affected, how much for a country, a particular sector being, how much the impact on GDP in India, how much the impact on jobs on India, how much the impact on inflation in India, how much overall impact it is. So how the particular sector, which sector will be the most affected, which sector will be the least affected. So we will discuss that thing in the later Power BI analysis. I have done that analysis, but see how much we can cover today. So the most affected areas were textile, gems, jewelry, and leather products. And it is predicted that for about 70% decline in the exports in the sectors which are most affected. So 70% decline in the exports in the worst hit sector. So the sectors which are highly affected, they will see a 70% decline in their exports. And this will cause a huge problem for the Indian export industry, specifically the textile and gems and jewelry industries. So it is about $27 billion of exports been affected, which is about 55% of the US bound exports. That means, let's say we export 100 goods to US, 100 types of goods. So out of this 100 goods, 55 goods or 55 products will be affected. See, we can consider like this. Let's say we export for about some amount of goods to US. Let's say 100 goods or 100 amount of exports. So out of those 100 exports, 55% exports will be affected, and that amounts to $87 billion. And this $87 billion will be reduced in the export earnings for India. So it will also cause some impact on our GDP also, and it has been expected that we would call about 0.3 to 0.5% reduction in the GDP of India because of the fall in exports. And job loss will be there because, as you can see, these sectors being affected, it will actually cause a lot of job loss, specifically in this sector. How much they would be, we will see in the Power BI analysis. As I have mentioned, I have done some data analysis also, and absolutely we will see a rupee then weakening. Why? Because less exports means our currency will be weak. Why it's weak? Because it's a simple economic analysis. Less exports means we will get less amount of dollar. If we get less amount of dollar, the supply of dollar will be less than the demand. And if the demand is more than the supply, the price of dollar will rise. And price of dollar being rising means the exchange rate will fall. And if exchange rate will fall, rupee value will diminish. So therefore, there will be a currency pressure on Indian economy, and India will see that there will a fall in the value of rupee also. So far now, how India can respond to these challenges? What in the court of Indian trade administrators, what and how Indian economy can respond to these challenges? This we need to just understand. But before that, we move to the Power BI analysis now. And I think if we talk about the case of India, yes, I think my screen is visible to all of you. Sure. So this is the GDP impact by these tariff. So the tariff been imposed. If we see the tariff been imposed on India, it is about, yes. So if we see the case of India, current tariff rate is 50%. Previous was 3.5%. As I have mentioned, 87 billion exports to US that has been affected. Out of this 87 billion, 48 billion exports are at risks. And the rationale is Russian oil purchases. The rational, political rationale behind this tariff rate is the ban or restricting India to buy Russian oil. So the current tariff rate is 50%. Previous rate was 3.5%. The amount of exports at US was 87 billion, and out of this 87 billion, 48 billion exports are at risk. That is the 55% of this 87 billion. So I think you can estimate how much are exports been affected by this tariff rate rising from 3.5% to 50%. So it is almost 15 times. So US has imposed the tariff 15 times more what was in 2024. So I think you can estimate. Next was Brazil. It's at number 2, again at 50%. Next is China. It is about 30% right now. Reason for Brazil, US gives, the rationale is trade deficit, that it is facing a highest trade deficit with Brazil. Then we cause the case of China. I hope my screen is quite visible. I can zoom it also. So India, it's a part of developing nation, emerging nation. Current tariff rate is 50%. Previous was 3.5, 87 billion exports. Out of this 87 billion, 48 billion exports are at risk. And the reason is the Russian oil purchases. Second, the case of Brazil. Brazil is also having the same tariff rate of 50%, which was earlier 4.2. Exporting $34 billion. Out of this 18% billion exports are at risk. And the reason for this tariff was the trade deficit US was facing because of trading with Brazil. Next is the case of China. You can see the China is having a lesser rate of tariff as compared to India right now. China is having 30% rate of tariff. Previously, it was 18.5, though not so higher as compared to the case of India and Brazil. And the exports it was doing to US was 158. Out of that, 135 been affected, and the reason is the technological competition and the geopolitical realignment too. Next is the case of Vietnam. Vietnam is also facing a tariff rate of 20%, but less than what is being faced by India, Brazil, and China. Similarly, Philippines, Mexico, these are some close allies of US, and the rationale was China's alternative for Vietnam. What about the Mexico and Canada? Since they are the USMCA member, the part of an association, so they are facing the less tariff, although they are also facing a higher tariff rate as compared to 2024, but at least less than what other countries might be facing. Similar to the case of developed countries. Now you can see one thing. In case of developed nations, the tariff rate has not been so higher as compared to the emerging countries. So US can we can estimate from this trend that almost every country has faced a higher tariff rate from the previous rate. That was the last year's rate. Every country has faced a higher rate. But the developed countries are facing less tariff rate as compared to the emerging ones. We will go into the detail of it, why it is, what are the reason behind that particular rationale also. But now, since now the time doesn't permit me to continue more, because a lot of things are there to discuss, even in the Power BI analysis as I have made. This was the effect on China, US, Latin America, India, how the GDP will be affected. So the highest GDP affected will be for China, of course, because it is trading the highest amount to US as compared to all other nations. So whatever US trades out of this, most of it comes from China, though it comes from Mexico, Canada. But as per the tariff rate, if we compare, the GDP rate for China will be the GDP impact on Chinese economy will be the highest one, though because its economy is more dependent on trade, and it exports higher amount of products to the United States of America. If we talk about the US, second number, we can see the impact on GDP will be negatively on US also, but less than what it could be for China. Third is the case of Latin America. Fourth is the case of India. So it is expected to India to face almost minus 0.4% in GDP. Then we take the case of Asian countries, 0.3, and then we case the case of European Union, 0.2. So the highest GDP been affected, or the sum of GDP impact. So highest percent of GDP impact will be on China, more than what it could affect to US, because Chinese economy is more dependent on trade. So that's all for today. I will continue tomorrow onwards from this note only, and we will try to do more analysis and try to make some more interpretation of all the context and all the things we are having. Tomorrow we'll be discussing about the import percent country by sector wise analysis we will be doing, and then we will try to understand country wise analysis for a particular country, how much exports have been affected, the rationale behind it, comparing previous tariff rate, current tariff rate, how it has changed. So thank you so much for today. Now I open the house for the questions. Anyone, anything from any aspect you want to discuss, you want to give some feedback, just let me know. Thank you so much.
Whether there is a reason about the financial crisis, something like that.
Financial crisis of 2008, that be a reason, but US didn't follow a very high protectionist policies during 2008, because that financial crisis led to the globalization in the world trade flow. So it is not specific to US. It was for about whole world at that moment.
So now we can say that it is a deglobalization. May I?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can now say. Now, because countries and economies are following nationalism, regionalization, and there is reorientation towards the regional economies, friendshoring, supply chain diversification. So yes, of course, we can see the process of deglobalization is propelling. Sure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Sir, to what extent the present global scenario which we are all discussing about, which you are discussing about, is going to affect the recession,
Uh,
like the upcoming recession, which
yes,
many economists are forecasting about? Like, is it going to speed up because of that?
absolutely. Because the recession is expected because of slowing down of the trade flows, because trade been affected most when the countries started following a policy of protectionism, and in this period when most of the countries are on the warfare, so we can expect a big impact on the recession in many nations. But in case of India, we can say that Indian economy is quite resilient in the case of recession as compared to other nations, because we are having a diversified population. So our markets could face a slowdown, but not uh, in a manner that other countries might face. So they would be facing more about that way. But what we need to take in care of, that we need to take in care of the case of inflation in some products, because as you can see there is a recession coming up with the unemployment. So that's a case of stagflation, supply chain disruption. So that need to be taken care of.
Recession means what is that?
Recession means
Recession.
when the economic growth slowdowns.
Okay.
That's when the recessions. Nirupama ji
Okay,
asked the
sir. Thank
question.
you.
Sure, ma'am. So can you put a light on why so far WTO is silent here, as already the impact is seen some of the emerging? Very good, very perfect question, ma'am. So as far as WTO is concerned, the role of WTO has to reduce this kind of trade protectionism going on a so higher side. But the issue is that uh, we have to see the WTO weight, that weight of countries which are coming under the WTO, World Trade Organization. Since now the developed nations are started following this policy, and yes, we can say WTO could have stopped China joined WTO in 2001. But the scene is, though China being the part of WTO, it did not follow the free trade policy mechanism. Though US being the part of WTO, it didn't follow free trade mechanism post 2016. The thing is, WTO have come in last 10 years with some policy changes, with some prior conditions, with some or the other kind of policy resolutions which should have stopped this trade protectionism. But I'm very much we are very much unfortunate that WTO didn't come up with any kind of policy formulation or any kind of binding on such countries so as to regulate or to provide agreements. And the second issue why WTO is silent also, the reason why WTO is silent, because many of the countries are moving towards a reorientation, and that is a different thing. Reorientation means the friendshoring, as I've already mentioned. Though we are not trading more with a particular country, but we are trading more with some other countries. So they justify it by, because as far as we are not having an ally with a particular country, we are moving ahead to some other country. But then again, violate the principles of WTO of most favored nations, that we have to give our markets free towards mostly favored, that is most of the nations we have to give. We cannot be selective in providing the trade to many economies. So yes, I accept your point that yes, WTO is silent, and I might not comment on that, but at least we can say that WTO couldn't be able to control in last 10 years what it should have been done with the policy formulations. I hope you are justified with the
Okay,
explanation. Thank
thank
you,
you, sir.
ma'am.
So we are very interested in the talk of de-dollarization that you are about to do in the
Sure, ma'am.
coming
Sure,
days, sir.
sure. Absolutely, we'll
Yeah,
be discussing. Absolutely,
that will be a very absolute change in the trend of no, today's.
surely, ma'am. Surely.
Sir, one question, sir.
Yes,
Why
ma'am.
there is a rush for the purchase of the gold and the gold price is crazily rising?
Mhm.
So yeah, can you please elaborate on that, sir?
Sure, ma'am. See, ma'am, as far as gold is concerned, so there are two aspects. When there is a rush, So that rush becomes the part of some kind of a hype being created, because if you not create the hype, then prices won't rise and people won't buy it more. First of all, the thing is this, it happens every time when there is a rush. It sometime it is, sometime it has been created also. So it's a twin thing, it's a mix of both. Yes, it is, rush is there, but hype is also being created so that more rush could be created. Second thing is that why people want to buy gold as of now, because people consider gold as the safest form of asset in which one can hold or his or her wealth, because gold is the purest form of asset. If we hold our assets in the form of gold, gold has always been seeing rising more than what we can see a rise in the case of land, in the case of mutual funds, in the case of finance. Why? Though other assets would have rise more than gold in a percentage form, but they have not been so stable in rising and not been the safe ones. Because gold being the safest one, it will definitely rise after 10 years, 5 years, 7 years. So gold being the safest investment in the case of recession period. Why? Because though its value won't be rising much, but it will give its value one or the other day. So you can hold the gold for a longer period. It might not, it might beat inflation, but if it is a recession period, then you won't be facing any issues and it will be the safest investment. Because in the period of recession also, it is easy to sell gold rather than selling any other commodity. Because gold been bought. Because people trust more on gold as compared to the land. If you can see in the COVID period, people were ready to sell their lands, but no one want to buy in their land, or they were buying at a lesser price. So even in the period of recession, the safest investment is a gold. That's how.
Absolutely, absolutely correct, sir. So
Thank you.
thank you, sir. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
ma'am.
But like, is it still worth buying gold, sir? Is it like, is it going to rise as an
Sorry to say,
investment? Can we still?
as I should have given the advice, because I'm
No,
not a
some people
financial
are
person.
guessing that it might go up to 2 lakh also. That's the reason. Two
Yeah.
lakh per 10 grams.
So
For 10 grams.
I can't, I should not give any advice. I own a
Yes,
platform.
yes, yes. Sure, sure, sir.
So
Sure. Thank you.
I suggest you should go by the as a key rule I have asked from financiers also. So one should go in investment as per their requirements,
Mhm.
because market trends will change 5 years, 10 years down the line. Cycle will change, but one should invest as per what their objective is, for what they are investing, and for how much long they will be investing. That solves the purpose. That will give you the direction where to invest.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a question here.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Actually, it's related to Saleja madam, what she told you. Asks about
Sure.
there is another kind of investment that is known as cryptocurrency. Now, this is
Yes.
also because of the recession. Now he's diverting towards
Mhm.
currency where he'll be backing up what is a loss. So why can't
Mhm.
this Indian economy? Why can't we go for the cryptocurrency? Because now recently the government has changed in the GST policy. I don't know how far
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of what they are observing because of this impact of the tariff. So that is, I don't know, that is another policy which he has done it because of this tariff war
Yes.
going on.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So
Of course.
if they are going for the cryptocurrency, though it has some demerits also.
Yes.
Why we are not legalizing it for that?
The Sure, ma'am. Good. It's like an interesting point you made it. The thing is, with the cryptocurrency, we can make cryptocurrency formalized, legalized. Also, we can recognize it as an investment measure. But the first thing with the cryptocurrency is that it has some regulatory mechanism issues, that it is becoming very difficult and very, I would say, complicated for government to regulate it, because first of all we need a regulatory mechanism in order to save people from unstable behaviors and some uh, threatful activities, some frauds and scams, and specifically the fluctuations or the manipulation it could have faced. As I can mention you the case of 1992 and all, when SEBI formed. SEBI was formed by when, and SEBI was came up as a regulatory body when the stock market faced some crisis. So government want to avoid such crisis, that if in case some fluctuation happen, not I'm not just talking about any kind of scams or any kind of that, but if some kind of a huge volatility happens, so that will create a rush in the market, and that will create a negative sentiment in the market, and that might lead to many person loss also. What India faced during 1992 and 91, I think you can remember that. So
Mm.
that's why SEBI came up. So first of all, India need to have a regulatory mechanism in order to regulate that cryptocurrency market. Without regulatory market, if you open that market, that will lead to some crisis. That is expected because people might lose money. So that is the reason behind this.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. So any more questions? We can head toward the closure of the session.
All right. As we have no other questions for today, we'll move towards closing the session
Sure.
as we have overshot the time limit. So thanks so much everyone for joining us. We'll meet again tomorrow at the same time. The link remains the same. Thank you. We can exit the meeting now.